this and do that and the other, and I'm like, it's fantastic, but I'm not interested.
I have a question. Why aren't you concerned about it? Which I think.
Well, my idea here is, again, these are sort of ready-mades, they're found. You know, this idea of a ready-made, like a Duchamp ready-made. And my intent is if they start falling apart, you would buy another black bag and you just cover it over.
Okay.
It's not, again, this is not like, sort of like this romantic touch in time and place. It's just, it's a gesture.
A moment, an experience.
Yeah, so if the red bag falls apart, you get another red bag and replace it.
And
It's not made or broken by a specific red
Also,
bag.
you touch in with Rosanna with some of the ideas like the candies or things that are ephemeral or life that is ephemeral.
Exactly. So that's the question. I mean, it's a very good question. But for me, it's like it's not a matter. I'm not attached to the specific piece.
Right.
Especially in,
Just that you're attached to the story of the bag.
I'm attached to the idea of it, what it stands for.
Right.
And I think your artwork breaking down and kind of dying or disintegrating, I think some artists are very concerned about that, and some artists that's really part of the process of making a piece, and it changes, you know, over time and so forth.
It might be the floor.
Yeah.
Do you have a question?
Well, it's more like a comment. The American Dream, Overlord American Dream, it just also shows how much a name, a title to a piece, you can get so much out of it, because then you think American Dream, you do think consumption, and like you can just replace a black bag. And Overlord, it's something hidden. Trash bags are black for a reason, so you don't see the trash, you don't want to see it, and don't want to see dead bodies. So it really proves that point that without a title does so much to a work.
Yeah, and that's a great point, actually. For some people, a lot of abstract painters that I know, I mean, again, speaking within the tradition that I'm very clearly part of, call their work untitled, and I always have problems with that. It's like, you know, give me something. You know, give me something. Again, because my work is more, I mean, I'm more interested in the ideas than the painting. You know, I'm not like a romantic painter, I mentioned that. So it's like the title is part of that sort of, that thought process. So titles are really critically important to me, yeah. Here's another one.
Yeah, those look really good together, all those.
Yeah.
I like that.
So this is a piece that I did, I think at the beginning of last year. It's a piece called No Ifs, No Buts, No Maybes. It's like, you know, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. But it's, again, 3 monochrome paintings. There's a bright red one, a bright yellow one, and a bright blue one. They're like primary colors. I mean, this is like color theory 101. You guys know all that. And again, I blew them out. And there is a tradition of people doing monochrome work where they do red, yellow, blue. That goes all the way back to the very beginning of abstract painting. I mean, Rodchenko, who's a pretty well-known artist, Russian artist, did what are essentially considered the first monochrome paintings in the 1920s. And he did a red, a yellow, and a blue. And a lot of artists have used that device, that sort of found device, red, yellow, blue. I mean, it's just, for me, it's found. It's like a found anything. It's like a found plastic bag. And sort of taken those and manipulated them forward. So this was really about a piece that was about the end of orthodoxy. You know, we were talking really about orthodoxy, like hardcore, red, yellow, blue, you know. And the quote is from No Ifs, No Buts, No Maybes, was traveling with Rosanna actually to visit a friend of ours. It was Easter morning, and we were on the subway and the trains were like really screwed up, like today. And it took forever to get there, and it was jam-packed, and it was like, we were going to Chelsea. It wasn't like even like more than like a 20-minute ride, and there was this preacher who was like, you know, an evangelist preacher on the subway. Right here. And the train was crawling and we were like literally sitting and listening to this guy for an hour. And he had a great Caribbean accent that I won't go into, but he was like, no this, no that, no the other. You know, it was just like going on and on and on and on.
I know that guy.
You know this guy, right? We all know this guy.
I'm not joking.
Right. So he kept going on, like, you know, he was really evangelizing. He was like really telling us everybody was going to hell. You know, this is what it was. You repent or you go to hell, which is, you know, you can do whatever you want. But he kept saying, no ifs, no buts, no maybes. You're going to hell. And he kept saying it over and over and over. So I was like thinking, well, this guy is really, you know, he's really convinced of what he's talking about. It's extremely interesting as an idea. And as Rodchenko was really convinced of what he was doing, and other guys that have used this and convinced, this sort of like orthodoxy, like this sort of commitment to this one vision, this being the vision, allowing no room for any other vision. And it was a piece that was about that. So this was really inspired by, you know, art history and and a street preacher.
Yeah.
You guys have any questions? How are we doing on time?
Do you ever document the blowing out of these?
You know, I've been asked that question a million times, and it's something that I probably should consider doing. But I haven't.
With a hammer?
Yeah, I just go in here and I just like dive into it. Yeah, just really like get rid of it. And it's really cathartic, and it's really like intimidating because you as a painter, it's like I'm going against like what my nature is, which is like to keep this precious object, and I'm just like going into it with a hammer.
Have you like ever done ones that you're like, no, this just doesn't feel right, and you scrap it, or do you just use the 3 that you did?
Leave it as is. Yeah, I leave it as is. I try to remain sort of with a certain degree of fidelity to what the practice is.
Or then what about using the broken elements of,
For something
The
else.
thing for
I've
something
been asked
else,
that question too. I haven't done it yet though. I haven't done
or
it.
somehow organizing it in collaboration with the blown out frame?
Yeah, I haven't thought about it yet. I've thought about like I have all this material. It's all like just completely splintered. It's like shrapnel. But what am I going to do with it? So I'm going to show you one more piece, which is relatively recent. This is a piece that I did in Australia. Rosanna showed you her blue floor piece, and then I had another room. And this is a piece that I did on site. Can you ever see this? It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
And this is again a piece about the war, and they're called war monochromes. Again, monochrome is never associated with war, so I wanted to kind of make that connection really close together. And I had actually 6 of these small paintings. They were all like this. They were all like off-the-shelf canvases that I bought across the street at like a 99-cent store. This is in like a interesting kind of mixed immigrant neighborhood. They've got all these places, and I just went over there and said, "Do you have any art supplies?" And they gave me these canvases. Perfect. That was it. It was across the street. No other aesthetic decisions. But what I did is I put them up on the wall. I put screws in the wall, hung the canvases, and then I bought spray paint, and I tagged each of them as they were on the wall. So I didn't spray them ahead of time and then hang them on a wall. I made them in place. And my intent was just to cover the surface evenly. Just spray them until they were covered. So you have all of this sort of like blowout that happened around them. So they look like bomb drops or scorch marks or something like this. And the colors that I selected were, again, this is sort of like a sort of an army green, fluorescent orange, fluorescent yellow, and silver. And they were all, again, inspired by sort of the aesthetics of combat. So these were actually inspired by the deck of an aircraft carrier, like one of the colors that are on that aircraft carrier. So you have munitions that are painted in silver. You have people running around in green and yellow uniforms. You have black smoke. There were others. And so it's like, what does that combat aesthetic look like? And these were inspired by that. And the reason I decided to do this piece down there is that Australia was really clearly in cahoots with George Bush in launching this war. Like they needed a war to fight to keep power down there for John Howard, who was the prime minister. So John Howard Bushism was really a clear kind of political connection, and they had really clear motivation, this sort of like super conservatism that happened. And what's interesting is that he's now out of power. He just got voted out of power, and they put someone else in. It's much more sort of progressive. So they voted him out, and Bush is leaving office in the year. So, but anyway, so there were 6 of these, and they were done on site, and they were called war monochromes. So here's some image. So there's a black one, yellow one. And I've done this. This is sort of like a new strategy for me that I'll be using in the future.